In this week's Motor Week, Howard Stableford looks at the impressive Audi A6. Ian Royle puts the 155-mile-per-hour Saab Viggen through its paces.
Just think of all the great achievements that have come from Sweden. Well, there was ABBA. We've all got an ABBA record in our collection somewhere. Biggest export industry in the 70s and 80s for the Swedes, ABBA were. There were also mixed saunas. They were really rather good. And some really very fast cars too. Well, pretty fast cars anyway. Now, Saab have long had a tradition of making superb vehicles. They haven't used turbochargers in their cars for nothing. Not content with the current 9.3 turbocharged range, they've upped the stakes considerably with this, the new Saab 9.3 Viggen. And what better place to try it than on the streets of Monaco in the weeks leading up to the Monaco Grand Prix. Now, the name Viggen means nothing to me, as it probably doesn't do to you, but its roots are in Saab Aviation. This is Saab's fastest ever production car. The current 9.3 turbo is no slouch at the moment. It does 0 to 60 in just over 7 seconds with a top speed of 140 miles per hour. So the Viggen is going to have to be quick, and it is. Under the bonnet is a 2.3-litre turbocharged engine which produces 225 brake horsepower. But most importantly, it has 252 pounds-feet of torque to give excellent mid-range acceleration. And that's something that Saab are very keen to stress. Give the car usable performance rather than a fast 0 to 60 time, which it also has in about 6.5 seconds, and a top speed of limited 155 miles per hour. Plus, you can accelerate between 40 and 70 as fast as a 911. The Viggen has been produced in cooperation with TWR and is the ultimate performance Saab. Around 2,500 Viggens will be produced each year. 500 of those will make it to the UK, so it's going to be an exclusive Saab. Prices, well, they start at £31,000 for the coupe, 3-door, 31.5 for the 5-door, and 36,500 for the convertible, a premium of about 3,500 on the existing 9.3 range. The Viggen comes in a choice of 4 colours. You can have blue, silver, black or yellow, plus some new interior colours too. You get sports seats, you get pretty much everything as standard: climate control, electric seats and windows, and a quality audio system. So, this is Monaco, the Grand Prix circuit. The cars will come through the tunnel, down the hill, into the harbour area and around the swimming pool complex here. Now, in the short time that we've had to drive the Viggen, we haven't really had a chance to unleash its full potential. Safe to say, though, it is a really good car. It's a car that's almost carved out a niche for itself in the market. There's no direct rival. Perhaps the BMW 328 comes closest. It could be a poor man's M3. Saab expect existing 9.3 owners to be the main buyers for the Viggen. They demanded the car, and now they've got it.
When Ford decided to make a commercial for the new Ford Kuga, they found that one actor embodied all the right characteristics of the car: Dennis Hopper. In 1969, he produced, directed and starred in one of the great American films, Easy Rider, about the desire of youth to break away. Well, Ford and its ad agency, Young and Rubicam, understood that the Ford Cougar Sports Coupe would appeal to an age group seeking to relive their youth, recapture their love of spontaneity, and break away from the mold now and again. How better to communicate that spirit than by letting the 1969 Hopper meet the 1999 Hopper on an open highway.
It's a kind of retro style commercial really. The idea being that Dennis Hopper of today meets his alter ego and his other self from the movie Easy Rider in Death Valley 30 years later, driving the new Cougar, and it's a face-off between the two of them. That essentially is the premise.
It's a terrific bit of filmmaking. It's very innovative, using me from Easy Rider and myself now acting with myself. I was playing golf with Jack Nicholson. I said, Jack, they have this new technology. I just did this commercial for Ford where I'm playing with myself in Easy Rider. I said, you can go back to any of your old movies and play your father or your older brother or whatever you want. And, it's really it's great. Yeah.
Dennis was incredibly supportive with the idea, and we developed it along the line with him, and he was very excited. He was very excited to see technically how the images would work, i.e. matching himself today to his other self from the late 60s. And we started to bring in nuances within the film of things that he did from the old movie, and he remembered certain sequences that he shot years ago, which was really helpful.
The cinematic theme with Ford commercials started with the use of Steve McQueen and Bullitt for the Ford Puma. Here, the footage of Steve McQueen from the film was electronically inlaid into contemporary footage to make it look as if McQueen was driving the new car. The new film had to have a central character to whom the audience could easily relate. Easy Rider and Dennis Hopper was a good choice.
I'm acting with myself from Easy Rider, and it's really thrilling. It's thrilling to see what they're doing. Also, they have an editing van out here, and they're cutting and putting it together while they're doing it. It's a thrill watching it. Yeah, it is. It's a great thrill.
The storyline would be the chance meeting of the two Hoppers, one from today, the other the youthful, wild child of the 60s, both realizing their dreams on the road, both still the same person at heart. This juxtaposition was to illustrate the two sides of the Ford Cougar driver, conventional exterior, but wild inner spirit. The key to the creation of the commercial was the Flame, the mobile computer synchronization system, a state-of-the-art computer program.
We broke new ground with this commercial. In terms of, we were the first people globally to incorporate a flame system, which is pretty much what we have here, which is a computer-aided composite special effects system. And we had that on site with us, where we could actually shoot and composite on location, and really see if we were getting it right, if we were getting our angles right, our lights right, our lenses, the type of focal lengths we were using right. So that was a breakthrough.
Weeks of painstaking work went into developing the seamless bond between the images from the 60s and the 90s, so that the young Dennis Hopper could meet today's Dennis Hopper. Look out for a full road test on the Ford Cougar on Motor Week soon.
Two cars, one a small hatch, the other a small race car developed for the road. An odd choice to test together, you might think. What have they got in common? Well, quite a lot. For a start, they both cost about 13 grand. They're both built with driving in mind. But this is the Citroen Saxo VTS. It's a compromise. It offers practicality and drivability. Caterham Super 7 Sprint offers no practicality, no compromise. It's just about driving. So we want to find out, is it worth sacrificing the practicality of the Citroen for the excitement of the Caterham? So which one first? It's got to be the Caterham. And straight away, there's no mistaking this car's purpose. In a tiny little cockpit, we've got two deep bucket seats, very narrow. We've got a full 4-point race harness, which is a fiddle to get on, minimal dials, and that's it. No creature comforts whatsoever, and a little tiny Momo steering wheel. And it's not the easiest thing to get into or out of. Well, it's got an alarm, which is good in a car with no roof, but it's not the easiest thing to find where the keys are, located under the dash, but we've done it. So we'll fire it up, you hear the fuel pump clicking away. But first, release the handbrake under here. We're ready for liftoff. In actual fact, Caterham can supply you with one of these direct from the factory for just a shade under 11 grand. But to be honest, I think to spec it up to anything like a livable standard, you're going to be spending about 13. You can go mad and spend 20 grand on something that'll easily beat a Ferrari. Cramped isn't the word in here. It's unbelievable. This thing is tiny. I'm a small guy. You should have seen us wrestling the cameraman in here. Getting him out is going to be even more fun. This is absolutely back to basics. I feel like Biggles in a car. Hello. splendid old roadster. There is not a single frill on this car. Everything is basic and functional. And the controls are incredible. The steering is faster than I can believe. With a tiny little steering wheel, it's accentuated. Before you know what's happening, you really are disappearing up your own watts here. Everything you need is here, even a little tiny indicator. It works, but again, it's pretty functional. This is the most basic version. It's the Classic or the Sprint, so it's a little tiny 1.6 8-valve K-series engine, but that is more than enough. The car weighs about half a ton, which really is nothing. That makes for blistering performance. We're not talking high-tech Japanese-style manufacturing here. We're talking about enormous fun in a little tiny lightweight package. Even down to the steel wheels, it's the basic specification, no fancy alloys here. There's no doubting it is enormous fun, but any car that you can't even get out of without a set procedure. I'm only a small guy. For 6 footers, it's impossible to wrestle your way around. Practical, no. And as for the procedure for getting into our more sensible little sporting friend, Citroen Saxo, well, it consists of this, and then this. Well, this is completely different. It's a car for a start. You're sat inside a hot hatch, but in fact, apart from the nice blue dials, you wouldn't really know there was anything hot about it at all. You just sat in an ordinary car. It's not until you mash the right pedal do you realise this thing is very fast indeed. Front-wheel drive, so it's a totally different experience, and it is extremely quick. It's typical hot hatchery in here. All the power going to the front wheels, they're only too ready to break traction and spin. It goes around corners incredibly quickly. Unlike the Caterham, it takes minimal effort. In the case of the 7, you get back what you put in. It's rear-wheel driven, it feels raw and basic. This feels as comfortable as any other hatchback. It just happens to go very quickly. So, decision time. What do I go for? They both cost about the same. Do I choose Citroen Saxo VTS with its optimum compromise between driving pleasure and practicality, or the no-frills, no-compromises Caterham? Well, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool motoring enthusiast and I'm a bit of a hard man. I don't mind the wind in the hair, but then I have got to go to London, and it is an awful long way. It's the Citroen.
In part 2, Howard Stableford brings us a touch of class with the A6.
The BMW 5 Series are quite rightly amongst the best executive cars on the road. They handle brilliantly, they're extremely comfortable, and the build quality is superb. And this version is no exception. Except that, curiously, this is called an Audi A6. But let me tell you something, this is no BMW wannabe. It's more of a BMW can do better than be. The exterior of this car is a perfectly pleasant dark blue. The interior of this car is a deeply unpleasant dark blue, and there's acres of it. And do you remember how in the late 1970s you used to have to save up to get that velour trim in your Ford Escort with the heater? Well, here it comes as standard. Have you got your toolkits ready? Let's have a look underneath the bonnet. You'll be surprised by this. Have a look at this. There is an engine that says, hands off, do not touch, move along now, there's nothing to see here. It's the 2.4 litre compact V6 with 5 valves per cylinder, 3 intake valves, 2 exhaust valves, which improves fuel efficiency, performance and emissions as well. But looking at the layout of this engine, it's clear that we're not supposed to worry our pretty little heads about it. The lines of the A6 are really sweeping and elegant, I think, again reminiscent of the BMW 5 Series. But you know, there's a price to pay with this sort of flattened off trim. There used to be a sort of a little gutter here to catch the rainwater. Now, it's you that catches the rainwater whenever you open the door or the window. Neat though. If you were surprised by what was underneath the bonnet, wait till you see what's in the boot. It's enormous. If this was in Tokyo, they'd charge you 100 quid a night for a room that size. 551 litres as they have it these days. That's a lot of beer that you could buy in Calais and stuff in the back. And with the rear fold split seats, it actually increases to 840 litres of space. Very clever design at the back here. The rear suspension has been made more compact, which means that this is a flat shelf and quite low down, so it's easy to load things in and out. But don't worry, the spare wheel is full size and neatly tucked away back there. There's also space on the sides. For instance, in here you'll find the jack and also a luggage net stored away from there. There's also extra space on the other side too. That is impressive. This is a car well designed and well suited for long distances. If you haven't been too depressed by the blues, you should finish your journey fairly relaxed. And out here in the countryside, well, it carves through the corners with great assurance, helped of course by this button, ASR, Anti-Skip Regulation Traction Control to you and me. Automatic climate control comes as standard on all the models with separate driver and passenger controls, and this one has an extra very neat trick. It monitors the position of the sun. According to the intensity of the light and the angle of the sun's rays, the climate is adjusted accordingly so that the weather inside is always clement. They've really gone to town with the lighting in this car too. Vanity mirrors illuminate all the blemishes. The console lights are fed by fibre optic cables, no less. There are footwell lights, large reading lamps in the back. Oh, and if God's big reading lamp is glaring at you too much through the rear windscreen, no matter. Watch what happens when you press this button. Despite being lighter than the previous version, the new body is 50% more rigid, and that helps with the driving dynamics and ride comfort. The bonnet, door frames, bumper mounts, driver's area frame module and side impact bars were all made from aluminium. It's the first time Audi has used this material for a large exterior part on a high volume production car. The reason why people buy BMWs and Mercs is because they're good cars, and the Audi A6 joins that particular golf club, non-member or not. On the road it's about £26,000 this particular model, but with great specifications coming as standard, you're getting a pretty good deal for your money. And you know something? I've even found a way round all that horrible dark blue velour in there. Why, simply step into the biggest room in the house. This way. You can avoid the noisy kids in the back as well. Drive on!
Suzuki will unveil a new soft-top version of its Jimny off-roader at the Barcelona Motor Show later this month. The soft-top will be powered by the same 1.3-litre engine found in the hard-top version. Suzuki aim to have the soft-top in the UK showrooms in time for the summer, of course if we get one. VW will be one of the first manufacturers to introduce 6-speed gearboxes right across its range. Previously, 6-speed boxes were the preserve of the high-speed or luxury models, but Volkswagen are using the technology to improve economy and refinement. The new gearboxes will filter into the range over the next few years. Brake horsepower. Now, you can forget those other well-known three little words, because those are the only three words that anybody who's mad about cars longs to hear. The more brake horsepower the car has, the more excited we get. And, as is generally the way, the more money we have to fork out to get behind the wheel. But could you actually put a price on, say, 34 brake horsepower? You can't. Well, the chaps at Ford can, because they reckon that in the case of this car, the 1.4 Puma, 34 brake horsepower is worth exactly 1,500 quid. Because that's how much you'll save if you decide to buy this 1.4-litre 89 brake horsepower Puma instead of its bigger brother, the 1.7-litre 123 brake horsepower version. Sit back and admire the curves, the lines, those cat's eyes staring out from you at the front. even the alloy wheels are the same. Everything we love about the Puma. But all for the very affordable price tag of £13,225. And inside, well, you get an identical interior. The lovely curves are there, the aluminium trim, that gorgeous steel gear knob and the sporty white dials. Plus, just like the 1.7, there is an amazing amount of room for such a cute little coupe. And the savings don't stop at the price. Because you've opted for the 1.4 16-valve VTEC, you'll only have to fork out for Group 9 insurance, which is 3 groups lower than the 1.7. That's another few quid in the bank. So this is the car to keep your bank manager happy. But what about the racing driver in you? Can it live up to those expectations? Big Brother Puma won hearts everywhere because of its superb agility. The 1.7-litre engine is torquey and eager. In short, it's a joy to drive. And here's the good bit about Baby Brother. It isn't that far away from the 1.7 in terms of performance as you might think. This 1.4 engine that also features in some of the sportier Fiestas does feel quite punchy. It'll get you from 0 to 60 in 10.8 seconds and has a top speed of 112 miles per hour. It's not amazing performance, but when you're driving this car around town, it really is a good little ride. In fact, the only time you really notice the difference is when you get out onto the motorway. It's then that you start to miss the extra thrill you get in the 1.7. You really need to have to work this engine to get the most out of it. But when you get onto a twisty, turny stretch of road, Baby Puma is just as much fun as Big Brother. It really does feel fantastic. It corners superbly. I've got to say that I think it's one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars there is. It's amazing. All that's missing is the anti-lock brakes, standard on the 1.7, but an extra £390 on this version. In fact, apart from electric front windows and a passenger airbag, the shopping list is empty. But don't let the lack of toys put you off if you're wavering over your decision in the local Ford dealer. Now this may well be the cheaper version, and of course it's missing that 34 brake horsepower, but unless you're a real speed freak, I reckon that £1,500 in the bank should soften the blow. On next week's show, Richard Hammond gets first look at the long-awaited Honda S2000 and Ian Royle drives the Nissan Patrol.